Welcome to the Workology Podcast, a podcast for the disruptive workplace leader. Join host Jessica Miller Merrill, founder of Workology.com, as she sits down and gets to the bottom of trends, tools, and case studies for the business leader, HR, and recruiting professional who is tired of the status quo. Now here's Jessica with this episode of Workology.
Welcome to the Workology Podcast, sponsored by Workology. We've been talking about the gig economy for a few years now and how the growth of freelancing and contract work impacts how we work in the HR space. A recent study by the Freelance Union estimates that there are now 56.7 million American freelancers, an increase of 3.7 million in the past 5 years. As a contractor consultant myself, I am fascinated by how freelancing is changing how companies operate in today's marketplace. Today, I wanted to get a little meta and talk about HR freelancers. My guest today is recruitment marketing consultant and managing director of RecTech Media, Chris Russell, who recently founded HR Lancers, which is a website to help promote the use of freelancing inside the HR community. Chris, welcome to the Workology Podcast.
Hey, Jessica, really glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
You have been freelancing in the HR space probably for longer than me, and you have used some of the same resources I have in terms of connecting with other HR professionals who are doing the same type of work, like LinkedIn and then also Facebook groups. What was the impetus for creating an HR-specific freelance marketplace?
Yeah, so I've been freelancing pretty regularly for the past 5 years after I left my corporate gigs in 2015. And, I think the impetus for HR Lancers came about because a few reasons, right? So I've been using some of the traditional kind of freelance communities, like places like Upwork, freelancer.com, I think is another one that I've been on. And, one thing I've noticed on there is that those platforms are very sort of tech focused in terms of the types of projects that are up there overall. Not a whole lot of HR related work coming into those platforms overall. So that was the first thing I saw. You also don't know kind of who you're applying to. So it's kind of it's a blind system, right? I found that I've applied to a few things and just didn't really, like who that company was overall. They may have been more overseas versus US, that kind of stuff. Thirdly, I think the fees that some of these guys are charging to me is a little bit outrageous from a freelancer standpoint. Upwork charges 20% of a project fee, which to me is a little bit too much as a freelancer. And so that was another reason why I wanted to kind of go out and branch out on my own and create a dedicated site that actually focuses just on HR related projects like that. So kind of a combination of those things. And I was seeing just a number of freelancers in the space, especially on the Facebook, some of the Facebook groups out there, just kind of pining for more work around some of this stuff. So I started to put all those things together in my head, and having built some marketplaces in my past with some job boards here in Connecticut, I kind of had that skill set already. So I decided to go out there and push out HR Lancers. So it's pretty exciting.
I think it's a great idea. And I think that when you go to some of the sites and communities that you mentioned, it is such a challenge as somebody who's looking to hire people with a specific set of skills, because you get inundated with proposal after proposal. And those people sometimes are just they're desperate for work, and they might not have exactly what you're looking for. Or as a freelancer, it's hard to stand out from the crowd. So coming into a niche community like HR Lancers, I think is a great opportunity for both sides, HR and then the freelancer too.
Yeah, I think, and to me, I think this is where sort of, freelancing is headed as far as one of the trends I see, which is each industry, I think, is going to have its kind of own gig marketplace, if you will. I think you're going to see verticalization of the freelancing industries across different spectrums here. So that's another reason why I thought that the community itself could support its own site like this overall,
What kinds of positions or freelance gigs have been the most popular so far that you're seeing on your site?
So we take a couple kinds of gigs. So anything remote, essentially, that you can do remotely. A lot of remote sourcing type roles out there seem to be pretty popular. Writing gigs as well. I've hired a number of writers off the site myself already for some of my clients, some of my sites that I run. anything. We had some employee like handbook projects posted up there as well. So I think it's a variety of stuff overall. But I do think that, anything remote you can do, like sourcing especially, it's just prime for freelancers to go and take those roles out there. I think they're really craving for these types of roles in a remote fashion.
Especially if you have a community or a platform that you trust, which is a really niche area, which I feel like you guys really provide.
Yeah, it's dedicated, just HR projects. So you're not going to find anything else on there. And, I want to keep it that way overall. I think it's, even if like you go on LinkedIn Pro Finder, for example, and you look at that page as far as, what's on there, they list everything, right? From every kind of industry, every kind of types of projects overall. And even on there, they don't even specify, like, especially for HR stuff, you can't go on LinkedIn Pro Finder and actually check off, hey, I'm a recruitment marketer, right? That's what's my skill set is. And I found that kind of disappointing from some of these big players like that. They're kind of ignoring parts of the HR economy as far as the freelancers that are out there.
I think a lot of that stems from the people who are developing don't understand the nuances of the industry. And I've experienced that on LinkedIn Pro Finder myself, where I get on the phone with somebody after I, submit my interest and express my interest. And then you find out that it's not where you're really strong at all.
Yep. So I really kind of created the categories for the site. It's everything from benefits consulting to recruitment marketing, employment law, things like that. That you typically don't see on an Upwork and places like that.
Do you feel like the growth of freelancers in HR is on trend with the rest of the freelance workforce? Is it, on trend, or is it above? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I do. And I think there's really a huge upswell of freelancers who either want to get into the space or who are really, out there searching now for these types of projects overall. So again, I see it a lot on Facebook and some of the Facebook groups that I belong to. There's just so much pent up demand, I think, from the freelancer side for these types of projects overall. So I do think they're a little bit ahead of the employers in the space in terms of, hey, did you realize you can actually go out there and find some freelancers to fix some of these projects and work on them? And from that respect, but I do think there's a huge demand from the freelancer side for HR-related projects today overall.
Let's take a reset. This is Jessica Miller Merrill, and you are listening to the Workology podcast sponsored by Workology. Today we're talking about HR freelancing with Chris Russell.
Are you tired of putting your professional development on the back burner? It's time for you to invest in yourself with Upskill HR by Workology. We're a membership community focused on personal development for HR. Gain access to our elite community, training, coaching, and events. Learn more at upskillhr.com. You've
been freelancing in the HR space for a while now. How would someone in a traditional HR position today get started working as a freelancer? Maybe they've got the itch and they want to give it a shot.
Yeah, great question. So I think today as a freelancer, you have to kind of make your own noise out there, Jessica. And that means, you need your own website, of course. You need your own LLC to be official, and get on all social media platforms, particularly Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn as far as that goes. So I just met a new freelancer who joined HR Lancers named Jeannie Stanek, I think her last name is. And she's a recruitment marketing consultant. And I've been, once I connected with her, she is a great LinkedIn poster. So like I see multiple posts from her each day around tips she's giving out around your job ads and things like that, right? So she's becoming a resource for the people who follow her. And that's a great example of how to kind of to get your name out there overall, right? It's kind of give out some free advice and show your knowledge of the space overall. And people will start to listen to you and follow you at that point going forward. So I think it's a great way to, you really have to kind of, push yourself out there and get in front of the people you're looking to attract as clients.
I think a lot of people don't realize that about freelancing is you are the sales and marketing team for yourself, in addition to doing the project work and working with clients. So you are your everything
Yeah,
to find those roles. So it can be a challenge, but to have
it
a
is.
platform like yours, I think it makes it a lot easier to connect with different individuals.
Yeah, it's kind of like job seeking too. You got to spread your resume around. You got to, in this case, you got to spread your profile around. You got to push out some content of your own. Going to events in the space, and there's never been more events, conferences you can go to today as a recruiter than any time in history. And so it's a great time to go out there and make a name for yourself speaking as well. I've done some speaking in the past myself, and I have a client today I've been working with for about 3 years now, who found me off a speaking gig that I did. So that's another part of it as well. But you have to be kind of a marketer these days. There's a lot of noise out there as far as the attention spans of reaching HR people and companies and things like that. But and that's why it's so important to have kind of your own marketing strategy, a personal marketing strategy to spread the word about yourself.
You're right about the attention span, because as a freelancer, we're not just competing against other freelancers, but also the HR technology and service providers in the space that want to get in front of those HR and recruiting professionals too.
Yeah, they're being bombarded every day by all kinds of vendors out there for their attention and for their time, and it's definitely hard to break through sometimes. But you got to be authentic, and you got to show your knowledge. And I think if you do that, you'll eventually break through.
Outside of flexible schedule, which I feel like we've talked about that, and that's kind of an easy, I guess, reason to want to be a freelancer, is you can work in your pajamas and you work on your schedule. What are some other benefits?
For me, freelancing was, I got into freelancing essentially because I left corporate recruiting. So I was kind of almost forced out of that. I didn't like the people I worked for. I found that they didn't care too much about their employees. And as a recruiter who was working for them, it was hard for me to kind of, like going to work in that kind of environment overall. So I was almost forced into it. I think today, if I was actually working for companies who I actually liked to work for and who actually cared about their employees, I might still be in corporate, but it didn't work out that way. So, to me, I'm glad to where I ended up. I think I was kind of meant to be a freelancer and doing what I do today. I really try and see my job as helping recruiters to become better at what they do, whether it's through a blog post I write or a podcast, things like that. It's something that I think I was kind of born to do overall. So I think in the end, it worked out for me as far as how I got here. But I think, the flexible aspect of this is so important for many freelancers out there. I talked to one woman out in San Diego. She was dealing with a sick parent, right? And she had to leave her corporate job at that point. And she heard about HR Lancers. She gave me a call, and she really wanted to, thought it was a great resource. She actually thanked me for creating it as a new resource for her to go out there and try and find some work and get back into the market overall. So, I think it has a lot of positives out there as far as freelancing goes. And it's just that flexibility is something that is so key for many of the Lancers out there.
So let's talk about how employers can connect with the HR freelancers on HR Lancers. How do they do that?
Yeah, basically two ways. They can post a project or gig, or they can actually browse the profile. So we have an open profile section on there of hundreds of HR freelancers right now who have actually taken the time to post a profile and get it up there overall. So it's essentially free to use, whether you post a job or you browse the profiles. You can feature your gig or your project for a small upgraded fee if you'd like to as well, with a little more functionality on that. But it's a pretty low cost, no cost way to go out there and find who you're looking for overall. So that's kind of a quick nutshell about how it works. And
you said popular positions right now, sourcing, employee handbooks.
Yep. A lot of sourcing and recruiting stuff overall, I think is probably the top category, I would say. Anything you can do recruiting at home, from home, sourcing from home, shortlisting, writing, stuff like that is pretty popular on the site today.
Looking forward, let's fast forward a little bit, maybe 24 months from now. Mm-hmm. How do you see freelancing changing, growing, shrinking? What do you think?
Oh, I definitely think we're in the certainly early stages here of freelancing, particularly in the HR space overall. You're seeing a renewed interest in remote work from a lot of people out there. You're seeing companies go that route overall. I think 66% of companies today offer some form of remote working, and I think it's only going to grow as the technology gets better in terms of connecting with each other over distances. Things like Slack and Zoom, like we're on now, make it really easy to keep in touch overall. So I do think a lot of remote stuff is going to be coming out in the next few years overall. And I think the outsourcing for particularly small SMBs, I think is going to grow as well. They don't have HR departments, or there may be a HR department of one. And so I think that freelancing outsourcing can really help them grow as an organization. And my goal with the site is just to kind of build a community around it. I'm kind of less worried about making money now with it. I want to build just this big resource of freelancers who help them find work and build a community around it first. That's kind of the most important thing, I think, is the goal here. Freelancing itself, for the right people, is the right course for many of them.
I agree. Well, Chris, thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. Where can people go to learn about HR Lancers and connect with you?
Yeah, hrlancers.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn, on Twitter at Chris Russell. So I look forward to connecting with you, and feel free to give me a shout out and give me a call if you have any questions or things you want to talk about the site.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. As HR leaders, we're operating in a rapidly evolving talent marketplace, and the gig economy is just going to keep going. Just as sites spring up for freelance jobs in writing, editing, and other creative work, followed by tech jobs like developers and web designers, HR freelancing could be any company's best resource for finding professionals with specific experience that could help solve HR problems. And for those of us who are working as consultants in HR, this is a boon for connecting our talent with employers looking for HR contractors. I'm excited to see how HR Lancers grows, and I'm glad to have Chris on to talk with us today about it. Thank you for joining the Workology podcast, sponsored by Workology. This podcast is for the disruptive workplace leader who's tired of the status quo. This is Jessica Miller-Merrill. Until next time, visit workology.com to listen to all our previous Workology podcast episodes.